I got knockback after knockback and brick wall after brick wall, and I had to take time off and go back to Oxford and that kind of stuff. But there was just something really driving me. I felt like I'd found a passion. The normal knockbacks that would have made me shut down and give up didn't. This is like the first time ever. It was a really weird experience. And then the next twist of the tale is I lost my job in COVID in 2020. And for 28 years service, that gave me 12K. So I was a bit knackered.
Yeah.
And it's COVID.
Steve Ware, welcome to the HoLT Survival Guide for Small Businesses.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming all the way up to Manchester to film it. And before we get started, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your business?
So I'm Steve, and I would say I've changed the way I answer the question on kind of what I do. I used to say I'm a mindfulness teacher and I do this and I do that. I've kind of scrapped saying that because people didn't really get it.
Yeah, it's not super clear, is it?
No, and people don't really want it actually.
There's a lot of misunderstanding around what mindfulness
exactly.
is. Yeah.
So I would say something now more like I save businesses a lot of money. I make businesses a lot of money by making sure their staff are happier, healthier and higher performing. And whether that means their staff are sleeping better, dealing with their anxiety better, have quieter, calmer minds, are flourishing. There's a lot around flourishing. So people get tapping back into a real creative, innovative side that they lost because they were stressed or sort of burning out.
Can relate.
Yeah. And the way I do that is by using the most amazing stress reduction techniques. They're mindfulness-based ones.
Yeah.
And it all comes from Oxford University, which is where I trained.
Wow. And how long ago was that?
So I've been doing this about 14 years. So I was at IBM when I first started doing it.
Yeah.
My story is I burned out there. So I joined IBM when I was a kid, 1992.
Oh my goodness.
I never planned to get into IT actually. So the story is it was a rainy day in Southsea where I was in school, and I went into the careers office and there's this little piece of paper and it said, if you've got an aptitude for or an interest in, I can remember the exact wording, computing, we'll pay you £7,440 and you can come and do a degree with us. So basically IBM, whose headquarters were in Portsmouth then, they were taking like 18, 20 people a year. You do your degree with them. It was part-time hours at IBM and then it was compressed hours at uni. So it's a hard course. You wouldn't want like a normal student life.
No.
So we were 3.5 days at IBM, 1.5 days compressed at uni. No time off. Any time off we had, we'd go back to IBM.
Right.
So I joined IBM and I just kind of stumbled in there. It was never my passion. I never really wasn't that into IT, but I thought it sounds good and I want to get into it.
Great opportunity at that age, a great opportunity, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's a big, safe company. And I kind of grew up in a household that kind of was about big, safe places, no risk. My dad was in insurance.
Right.
I've kind of figured this out since, right? So my dad being in insurance is important because he's looking back, he must have spent his entire time with things coming across his desk saying, this car's been stolen, this business has burned down, this business is flooded, this, like everything's a disaster.
Insurance is all about mitigating risk, isn't it?
Right. So I picked up that kind of risk aversion from him. Everything had to be, Christ, there's a lot of bad stuff happening. How can we make everything else in our world safe? So I joined this big safe company, burned out about, how long had I been there? Probably 14, 15 years I've been there.
Yeah.
And I burned out and that sucked.
Yeah.
So that meant I went from being a really good sleeper to a horrendous sleeper, like dreading bedtimes. My anxiety levels went just from normal-ish to kind of high all the time. And
it's so hard to imagine you as an anxious, like restless person because I've only known like Zen Steve.
It's weird though, because I'm a wounded healer for sure.
Yeah.
So I think what makes me a good teacher is that I can relate to people. I can relate to people's cynicism around mindfulness. I can relate to people not wanting to do it. I can relate to people losing sleep because I've been there, done it, got the t-shirt. I wasn't born, I have to work really hard for the calm I have in my life.
Yeah.
And I can show other people kind of the same way to do that and invite a bit more calm in.
I think in general though, the best teachers are the people that have a relatable experience that brought them to that because you become passionate from your own, that passion was ignited because you realized how much it had changed your life.
Yeah.
And you're much more authentic as I remember reading a story on LinkedIn about an accountant who admitted that she'd got herself into masses of debt. And I was like, that's such a weird thing to admit as an accountant. But because she'd sorted herself out, it humanized her massively. And I was like, actually, do you know what? She's picked herself up, fixed it all, and got herself back in a really strong place.
Yeah.
I really admire the vulnerability. But I also feel like I'd be comfortable talking to her because I wouldn't feel judged.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of when you're picking someone, right?
Psychological safety.
Yeah. You don't feel like I'm going to say something and he's going to go, well.
Yeah.
You know?
So I was teaching this guy the other week and I said to the whole group, has anybody ever had trouble sleeping? Like you either can't fall asleep or you wake up and can't go back to sleep. One guy was shaking his head and I said, oh, you sleep well? He said, honestly, I've never lost a wink of sleep in my life. This is a guy, I can't say the name of the company, but he's high up. He leads sales for Africa. So he's got a big job for a big consumer goods company.
That's not someone I would imagine would sleep very well.
I know. So I said to him, tell us how you do it then. How do you, and he couldn't answer that. That's the difference. He just went, I don't know, I just get into bed and just close my eyes and sleep. Can't everyone do it, sort of thing? And it made me think, you can't go to people who have never suffered anything and learn from them, probably, because they probably haven't developed the tools.
They haven't analysed what it is that got them to where they are.
Yeah.
If it's just a natural talent. Exactly. And actually that's something that I struggle with because a lot of people over the years, because of my trajectory with business and the fact that I started on LinkedIn, I found a natural affinity for marketing myself and then helping other people to find and people say, well, how have you done it? And it took me ages. And to sort of put ego aside and go, what is it? Because I don't know. So much of it has been quite instinctive that trying to analyse what it is to teach others. I could never teach marketing because I don't know what it is that I do necessarily that has, I can't pinpoint it.
Yeah.
And people say the same, like copywriting. Oh, you're really good copywriter. I can't give you the terminology. Oh, I do this and I use this structure in this writing. I don't know it. No. I don't know those things. It's just how I write.
Exactly.
And that's a perfect sort of analogy, isn't it? If you haven't, if you're just good at something, trying to asking a bird how it flies, I just flap my wings and go.
Exactly.
Like it's not easy. So your experience made you really credible in that. So when was it that you went from this sort of burnout phase with IBM? How did you go from that to where you are now, or making that decision to give it a go?
So I was really reluctant to give it a go because I was this macho guy in a competitive macho world in IBM. There was no real mindfulness there. And someone suggested to me, someone looked up some of the science or they read something, which even 14 years ago was quite compelling even then. And they said, oh, have you thought about mindfulness? And I told them to piss off because I thought, like, I'm just not a meditator.
It sounds woo-woo, doesn't it? I can't imagine 14 years ago it must have sounded. Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was, but I thought I knew what it was, which is why I don't like the words now. I wait till week 3 when I'm teaching people before we even start to think about defining it, because it's something you experience. Yeah. There's 2 types of knowing, right? Conceptual and experiential. Yeah. And we can talk all day about concepts, but the analogy I use is nobody ever got fit by listening to a talk on fitness.
No.
I can watch fitness videos all day eating McDonald's. I don't get fit. Same with mindfulness. We can talk about it till we're blue in the face. Unless you feel it here, unless you try it for long enough to know and go, okay, that's what it is, then you move to the next base. But the interesting thing is everybody's doing mindfulness every day and they just don't realize it and they don't call it mindfulness.
Right.
Stroking Bronson now
100% mindfulness
is a mini meditation for you.
Yeah. He's my
Look at him. He's beautifully chilled there. He's
my
such
emotional support puppy.
And that is a mini moment of mindfulness because he stops your mind. If you're really with him, if you really, just as we're sitting here now, if you just put all your attention in your hands and just feel the warmth of his body and just feel the beautiful fur. You don't need to think to do that.
No.
And in fact, thinking detracts from that being a beautiful experience. So that is a mini moment of mindfulness. So everybody's doing it all throughout their day. And if people have kind of got enough moments like that in their day, then they're probably okay. I didn't have enough moments of quiet and calm in my mind.
Yeah.
And so my mind went crazy. So this guy said to me, have you tried it? And I said no. And 99% of my brain was saying, it's BS, it won't do anything, it's like crap. 1% of my brain said, do you know what, it's been around 2,500 years. Maybe you don't know everything.
Ego aside, I'm gonna
I managed to get out of my own way just enough. So I went home, I downloaded an app called Headspace. In fact, somebody in our extended family was working with a guy called Andy Pardicum, who's the guy behind Headspace. He was in London back then, and this guy was doing acupuncture, and he had like a nutritionist and all the other kind of different holistic approaches, and one of them was Andy doing the mindfulness stuff. And he just released this app, and someone said to me, why don't you just download Headspace and try it for 10 days? What have you got to lose? Nothing to lose. 10 minutes a day, 7 days. I downloaded it and tried it. Now, unfortunately, the end of that story isn't my life's been all unicorns and rainbows since, and I'm like the most chilled person. But there was something tiny in it. And I almost couldn't put my finger on it. I was a little bit less anxious. I was a little bit less stressed. I was a little bit less overwhelmed by my work. Fast forward a long story, people at work started noticing. It got interesting 2 months later when people said to me, what are you doing?
Wow.
That was interesting to see it reflected back to me. Because I was starting to think, oh, am I kidding myself? Is this placebo?
But it was so gradual that you didn't even really notice.
And I didn't tell anybody, literally didn't tell anybody. And so when they said to me, what are you doing differently? And I told them, they begged me to teach them. They said, we're as stressed as you are. We're as losing as much sleep as you are. And I said to them then, I can't teach you because I don't know what I'm doing myself yet. But I did go home one night from work and I opened the laptop and I Googled best place to learn how to teach mindfulness in business. I was only interested in business because I thought, this is the greatest thing I could give my colleagues. It's the greatest thing I could help them with. Oxford University came up and I used to catch the train up, and I went there and studied and brought an 8-week program back into IBM, which eventually did really, really well and was the first corporate approved program, which is a tough thing to get in a company like IBM.
Yeah. And I mean, it's tough enough selling LinkedIn training to corporates. Yeah. And that's got, a direct ROI on it if they actually implement it. To sell something that is still, it's not like, if you do this, you're going to make this much money.
Right.
There's no tangible.
It's hard.
Yeah. That you can't say, because of this, he did this much more work and made this much extra money.
It is hard to quantify.
Yeah. But they will quantify it to you and say, well, I was able to do this because I was sleeping better. And that meant I had the space to have this idea. I'm guilty of it as much as anybody. If I'm not sleeping well and I am booking too much into my day on a daily basis and not giving myself breathing space, I lose my creativity.
Yeah.
It dies a death.
Yeah.
And I get to the point where I'm like, oh my God, I haven't had an idea for a piece of content or a new business idea or any kind of an innovation. I've got no space to think.
It stifles it.
Massively.
It really stifles it.
Yeah. And I think that's good advice for any business owner. If you, right from the very beginning, is making sure that you're not just scheduling time in your week to work on the business and do your admin and not just be a slave to your client work, but actually time to just think.
Yeah.
Where you're not having to rush around and do anything. And I don't even call it thinking time. It's time when, like, I'm in the car and I'm driving.
Yeah.
If I'm driving to a job and it's a long drive, that's when my ideas come.
Yeah.
Or I'm lying in the bath.
Yeah.
Or I'm out walking this one with music in my ears and I don't have the thoughts of all the things that I have to do running around my head all the time.
That's the science behind it. That's what people don't realize.
Yeah, it's as simple as that.
True creativity, true innovation comes through a pretty quiet mind normally.
Yeah, and you can't do that when you're burned out.
Right.
So you trained a load of people at IBM and it was really successful.
It was crazy successful.
So why did you not continue doing that? What
I wanted to.
You did?
I really wanted to. So I brought this program in from Oxford, this 8-week program, and I asked people if they wanted to sign up, and I got loads of emails. So I ran a pilot. And the pilot results were insane. And I don't take personal credit for that because people did the work, right?
Yeah, but you can take some of the credit.
I'll take some of it there. So one lady wrote, this is one of the most incredible. I remember that I can literally remember sitting in IBM reading these emails and the hairs on the back of my neck standing up and thinking, this is something I really care about. Like I've done quite good stuff at IBM. I got outstanding technical achievement awards and been ranked as top talent, all this kind of stuff. But
you're helping people,
right? And
right?
I felt, you
were acting in service to people to make their lives better, and that comes with. And we're very similar in that, and actually, probably everybody we've spoken to on this podcast is, and that's why we are all friends. The way we are is, we all find purpose in serving others.
Yes,
in an impactful way that makes their lives better, and. You can do all the work you want in IBM, but when you're actually got people messaging you going, I literally had my first good night's sleep and then I came up with this amazing idea and that feels like something else, doesn't it?
Right. So the three big ones I got in a class of, they were all great feedback, but the three that I remembered, because I used them on my website when I knocked up a website years later. One lady was saying, I've been off work sick for months and I've come back early as a direct result of this course, was what she put.
Wow.
So there's your ROI straight away, right?
Yeah.
There's a manager on, I don't know what she's earning, 60, 70, 80 grand, maybe more.
Yeah.
And she's come back to work early as a result of something I've done. So the investment you've done in the course, you've gained, you've got it
just
back.
Saved that business loads of money.
One other guy said, I've had hypertension for a decade. It's come back to normal after 8 weeks. And then he said, and my doctor's confounded by this.
Wow, that is incredible.
So incredible, but I spent more time dwelling on the fact that I was thinking, why is your doctor confounded by this? Like, surely doctors in this day and age can appreciate it's not just tablets that can bring blood pressure.
Mind's a powerful thing, isn't it?
Hugely powerful.
And we don't even really understand how powerful is it. So you then went out and started teaching this. So
I was doing it all for free. I was doing it in my own time. I paid for all my own studies at IBM. I had a really, really supportive manager there. But they didn't see the value in it. The real senior management in IBM at that time, at least, didn't see the value in it. And even though I was saying to them, Google are doing this. Google have been doing this since 2008. They've monetized this. Google's program's called Search Inside Yourself. It's quite a clever riff on. They still didn't really see the value in it. So I was doing it all for free. And I was so passionate about it. I got knockback after knockback and brick wall after brick wall. And I had to take time off and go back to Oxford and all that kind of stuff. But there was just something really driving me. I felt like I'd found a passion. And so the normal knockbacks that would have made me shut down and give up didn't. This is like the first time ever. It was a really weird experience. Yeah. And so I kept going with it. But I did teach people at IBM. And then the next twist of the tale is I lost my job in COVID in 2020. And at that point, I was literally trying to cling to the wreckage and go, look at all this evidence I've got for saving loads of money and helping loads of people. Just let me teach it full time. We're going to change the world. This is going to be brilliant. We're going to be known globally as a brilliant provider for mindfulness, and they'll talk about it in the press. And everyone's like, yeah, sounds good. But when it got to a certain level, there were basically global redundancies happening. Everything got shut down. All the open seats, as they called them, the new jobs they couldn't raise. So I ended up leaving. I lost my job in September 2020. And for 28 years service, they gave me 12K. So I was a bit knackered. Yeah. And it's COVID. So, and I'm not
got a whole lot to answer for. We hear there's so many people and people that we've spoken to on this podcast that was such a key turning point in they lost a job, they were on furlough, it changed a lot of people's worlds. And some of us made the best of it, thankfully, and other people not so much, but you definitely did.
It's weird looking back though, because I still don't think of myself as a business person. I remember when I was in IBM and I was getting all these great results, and I was chatting to my mate in a WhatsApp group, and he used to be at IBM. He'd left and gone to another company, and he wrote to me. I can remember standing where I was in my house reading this message in WhatsApp, and he said, Steve, you've got to leave IBM and go and do this. You've got to. He said, I can feel your passion. I know how many people you're helping. This is it. This is it for you. You've got to leave and do it. And I can remember the thought that went through my head was, I would love to, but I haven't got the guts, basically. And that's for other people.
That's your family sort of impact.
Yeah, it was everything about about my upbringing, about everything I'd done up to that point.
Has it changed now? Are you more of a risk taker now because you trust yourself, because you did take that risk and it did work out for you?
A bit. I'd still say I'm risk averse.
Yeah. And that's a hard one to come away from when it's been like your entire life leading up to. How long have you been out of IBM now? So 4 years?
So it'll be 4 years. 4 years this month, yeah.
And so what's happened for you since then?
So first year, I kind of laugh when I look back on my first year, because I kind of thought this is quite easy, this business thing. So I kind of created my company. Actually, I was just a sole trader to start with. But I went out to my existing network, which was reasonably big after 20 years at IBM, especially the people that left IBM in different companies and said, hey, I'm doing this. These are the results I've got. Any chance we could do it at your company? And enough people said yes. I also did a bit of work with the University of Oxford teaching IBMers, ironically, because we created a partnership. So I was teaching IBMers, but for Oxford Uni. So my first year, I did all right. I earned enough money to get by. I didn't go into loads of debt. And I thought, piece of piss, this business.
What did your family think? Your risk-averse family?
What do you know what? Dad's probably the biggest person I got my risk aversion from, and he was surprisingly supportive. Wow. It shocked me, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of my age, because I'm that much older. I think he was a little bit worried about me. And he would say to me, he's not rich by any means, but he would say, are you doing okay? You know, do you need me to help out? And then, because he knew I didn't get much money from IBM and stuff. But he was actually quite supportive. He could see something in me probably that he hadn't seen. And it was this passion. It's the thing that was driving me. So.
And for a man of your age, so you would have been what, 45?
46.
When you left. So to only really, and I'm not saying that you don't have passion in other areas of your life, but to find passion for your career at 46, some would say that's quite late.
Yeah.
And as a parent, to look at your child and say, you know, and he probably wasn't maybe particularly passionate about his career, and to see suddenly this light inside you glow and burn.
Yeah.
Like, I know that I think it would be fair to say that my mum never witnessed me being passionate about what I do until 4 years ago myself, when, you know, everything changed and we first met, and I suddenly became excited on a daily basis. Now, I'm not saying it's still the same every single day. We all have our days, right?
Of course. Yeah,
we all have our days where we go, I just want to chuck it all in, throw the laptop out of the window. I can't do this anymore. But more often than not, I have a fire inside me to see how far I can go. Perfect. I'm more risk averse than you are. Because
no, you can't be.
I'm more of a risk taker than you are.
Yeah.
I think that I don't know where that comes from. I'm just maybe somewhat reckless, and I think I've always been somewhat reckless in general.
You take calculated risks, though, don't you?
Sometimes I'm just like, fuck it, let's see what happens.
Oh, really?
100%, yeah. But I back myself to always be able to fix a problem, because I always have. Like, there's lots of things that have gone wrong in my life where I have taken a risk and it maybe hasn't gone to plan, but I've always picked myself up and gone, let's get on with it. What's next?
Do you know how good you are?
What do you mean?
At what you do, at what you turn your hand to?
Oh, now I'm being interviewed. I don't know. I don't dwell on it very much, to be honest. I'm just always thinking about what's coming up.
It's kind of going back to earlier what you said about if you're good at something, like, what drew me to you, and the reason I wanted to work with you is because you seemed like someone who was kind of like me in the way they wanted to run their business and do things, but just kind of way further down the line. And you're getting your content was, I think the biggest compliment you can pay somebody on LinkedIn is for you to see their name come up and think, I'm going to read that post. And you were the first person that did that for me. I thought, it doesn't matter whether she's talking about her washing machine flooding or a great tip about LinkedIn. I want to read what she's going to say, because it's either going to educate me or inspire me or make me laugh, or all three maybe. Yeah. And that's an incredible hook. Like, that's the hook before you've even written the hook before your post, right? I'm already going to read it because I'm invested, no matter how great your hook is. And I thought, I want to try and be like that. I want to try and emulate that.
But you are now. You are now. I stop when I see your name, and I know loads of people do, and it's strange because I've met in person so many people off LinkedIn through the networking events and through the community now, and God knows how many like events that I've been to, and I've met a lot of people in person, and you come up in conversation a surprising amount.
Really?
Surprising to you, not to me, but you do come up in conversation a surprising amount, and people always say, I love his voice. Everyone says that to you.
That's so
weird. You need your own headspace meditation.
That's
You've got
so
such a
weird,
relaxing voice. But people notice you, they find your videos calming, and they love your content. And these are probably people that don't even engage with you, that are appreciating what you're doing.
That's nice
and recognize you.
Thank you.
Sorry for the interruption, but I've simply got to tell you about the HoLT. The HoLT is our light membership to the HoLT. For just £20, you can access more than 85 masterclasses delivered inside of the HoLT, and we add 4 or more every single month. There's no chat, no community, just pure value from experts you know you can trust. With quite literally tens of thousands of pounds worth of training inside the HoLT and no contract or commitment, some might have called it the Netflix for business growth. You can sign up at the-holt.com/HoLT and see for yourself. Now, back to our conversation.
That was a big turning point in the business, wasn't it? So you'd started this business, you had a bit of business that came through from your existing contacts, but then you knew you needed to keep marketing.
Yeah, so I had 4 really dry months.
And it's a really scary thing, right? Because terrifying. You hadn't had to ever market yourself to strangers.
Didn't know what it was. Never marketed, I'd done techie jobs in IBM. Yeah. So I'd solved computer system problems, I'd put in systems and supported them. It was everybody else that was doing marketing, selling, and all those kind of clever stuff. So yeah, I had a great first year, or an all right first year at least. And then at the start of year 2, from January to April, I earned 1,900 quid. And that's because I was doing no prospecting, no marketing, no nothing. Yeah. And my existing network, I naively thought that I would get enough referrals just from doing 1 year of kind of finding my mates that it would just explode and go crazy. So I got to that April and I thought I really need to market myself better. How am I going to do it? And who do I want to model myself on? I had a conversation with Jerry Williams actually. And I said to her, I haven't got much money. I'm thinking of working with Leah. What do you reckon? And without, like, straight away, she just DM'd me back and said, do it. Just do it.
Love Jerry.
Yeah. And I thought, I can't remember how much she even paid you, but it was probably most of that 1,900 quid. And I thought.
A bit more than that, I think.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. All that therapy's got rid of how much it was.
That was a gamble.
But it was a calculated risk, and I knew you well enough, and I'd seen, I'd asked around about it. Yeah.
I think of every client I've ever had, you did the most due diligence, because I had a few messages from people saying, "Oh, Steve Ware's just asked me about," because they always tell me, and they say, "Oh, don't worry, I told him to work with you." Yeah. And people, I have that relationship with people, and I'm sure I think we've had conversations where you've said, "Oh, I've just had a conversation with someone," and and it's lovely to have that. But forget that it was me. Investing in yourself and your own business is scary, and I'm the same. Like, I've wanted to work with people and gone, that's a lot. That's scary. And I remember at first investing in my first landing page, and it was several £1,000s, and I was like, I could knock it up myself, but it's not going to be as good, and it's not going to make as much money as me investing that money in it to do it. And I'll learn from that person, what that person does. I'll learn from that, and maybe I will be able to build my own in future, because I'll get a new skill from seeing how they've done it, and sort of analysing it and learning from it. That's what I did with Alex Thompson when I started working with him as a copywriter. I paid him to do my first launch, and learned from my first launch for my last digital course, learned from what he did and started implementing what I learned from him, to the point he was a little bit pissed off, I think, because he was like, hold on a minute, she's learned all of my techniques. I should have charged him more for this. But then once I got the hang of it, I now have hired him, and he's doing it again for me. But it is really scary. And especially if you're not making money at that time, you weren't making significant money, you were then investing a large amount into...
It felt like a big deal. It was a big deal.
But it changed everything, right? And this is not a podcast trying to big up my LinkedIn training, because by the time this goes out, I don't think I'm even doing it anymore. But it learning to market yourself is a key skill for any business owner. And it's something that's come up a lot, is we know the thing that we do for money, but we don't know all the other skills. And that is why I've got the community that I run, and now we've got the HoLT and the Vault to teach small businesses how to do all of the skills that they don't come into business with. Not just the fee earning thing. Yes. And you needed to learn that from the ground, but you've created yourself, and I'm not going to take full credit for this, because you've done the work, but what we talked about, you took it and made it your own. And now where's your business at? And not entirely because of that, but you've built up a great reputation. You've built up a lot of great connections. You've made friendships. You've created and attracted so many opportunities. But what would you say, because it's been 4 years now, and you personally have changed, your lifestyle has changed, because you're in control of your life and the hours that you work, and I imagine you work a lot less hours now than ever before, or ever in IBM maybe.
No, I would probably say I work more hours. It's a really weird dynamic. Yeah, because I work more hours, but I think what's happened is what was my passion stroke hobby before, which I was doing out of hours, is now my work.
Yeah.
So it
doesn't feel like work.
It doesn't. No, it feels like I'm swimming with the tide now.
And that's an incredible thing to say, because that's how I felt. And whenever I get to a point in my business where I don't feel like that, I go, okay, what needs to change?
Yes.
And that's where I decided, and it was actually in the Seychelles when I was delivering workshops. I know, hard life, but I was in there in March, and I was delivering a workshop, and we were all talking around all of our business issues. And I realized that the LinkedIn training that I was doing was holding me back from the thing that felt like swimming with the tide, which was the membership community. Right. And so I started building myself up and getting the HoLT ready to be the thing that takes over. Yeah. And I'm right now at the end of the LinkedIn training, and that is going to stop. And really scary.
Is it?
Yeah, it is really scary, but it feels right.
Yeah.
And, you know, this podcast was a key part of that plan, is that I want more people to be able to be helped.
Yeah.
And while the LinkedIn training I love, it's very much limited with how many people I can impact. And like with you at IBM, you had this urge to be able to help people on a much bigger scale. And that's where I'm at. I want to be able to help more people on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
That feels like swimming with the tide for me. So anything that's leading towards that end goal is the direction I need to go. And anything that's holding me back from that, I need to let go of that.
And trust in your gut's so important. It'd be so easy for me to come on a podcast like this and give everyone the impression that, you know, I burned out IBM and I found this incredible thing, Oxford, and I brought it into IBM and it went viral and I was, you know, really great at it. And then IBM makes me redundant and off I go and I create this other great business and I still work with great clients and it's a piece of cake. And it isn't.
It's not.
And if there's one thing I want people to take from this, is that the people that you think have got all their shit together haven't. They've got the same struggles you have. They've got the same worries as you have. They've got the same reticence as you have. But if you've got that passion, I think the acid test for me, and this is what we're talking about, swim with the tide and passion.
Yeah.
If you've got something inside of you that's just, whether it's a great service or a product, if you've got something you're really passionate about and you're great at it, I think the rest you can learn. And if you trust your gut, if you go with, when I left IBM and decided to set a business up, that was the first time I'd ever gone with my heart over my head, ever. And my head was screaming.
Yeah.
My head's screaming, safe job, safe job. You know, I could counter that with going, well, it wasn't a safe job, was it? Because you lost it after 28 years.
I
So
mean,
wasn't that safe?
We've talked about that. You do think there is this sort of idea that employment is the safe option, but when you can literally be put on 2 weeks, 4 weeks notice and your entire salary is gone and not everybody gets a redundancy payout.
Right.
And you're like, huh.
Yeah.
That's really scary.
Yeah, yeah.
You could be fired.
Right.
Something bad could happen.
Yeah.
You could get into a dispute with somebody at work. You get bullied. You get pushed out.
Yes.
Your role could become redundant.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
No.
And COVID really shook a lot of people's foundations in that respect, being put on furlough or suddenly losing their job because of, you know, cutbacks.
Yeah.
And they went, oh, employment isn't safe.
Yeah.
I need to do something different. And we saw on LinkedIn, we saw a surge in people turning to self-employment. But Steve, what is it for you, if you look inside yourself, and obviously mindfulness as an umbrella term has played a key role in your ability to succeed, but is it that passion? What is it that's made you continue to be a success and to keep the business growing? What would you say has been maybe the key lesson you've learned that has meant that you have got to this stage? Because obviously you're not earning £1,900 every 4 months now. You're doing considerably better. Life is comfortable. You've got an incredible reputation. You get some unreal clients. What has it been that's kept you going? What trait do you think you have now as a business owner that you can credit that with?
I think people can just relate to me.
Simple as that.
Yeah. I think I spend a lot of time making sure that I work with the right people. Trust my gut massively. If I'm working I do one-to-one with a few senior leaders each year. I just started that last year. And I do corporate groups. If it's going to be one-to-one, I really want to get to know the person a bit before. We've got to know and trust and like each other. Yeah. That's so important. But even groups, sometimes at IBM, people would ring me up and say, oh, my team are really stressed. I want to send them on your course. Can you teach me your course? And I'd say, well, no, let me speak to them first. Yeah. Because they may not want to do it. Like you don't find fitness coaches bursting into pubs and rounding loads of people up and going, we're going running tomorrow, guys.
Yeah.
Some people would be like, yes, I've been waiting for this. And some people would be like, I want to sit here and drink beer. Mm. So it's the same for any personal development, especially the stuff I do, because, you know, you can take a horse to water and all that.
The company be wasting their money. You've got a lot of integrity to handle it like that, though, because that could lead to you saying, actually, I'm not going to work with them. Yeah. And turning down work.
Yeah. But I have to, because for two reasons. I'm only as good as my last review in some ways. And I honestly care. I honestly care. It bothers me that people get something from this. And it lights me up when people do. So I want to spend time filtering people. And I've got really good ways of doing that now. So we don't just jump straight into an 8-week mindfulness course. Yeah. We've got ways of, in fact, I nicked some of it from Joe Wicks. You know, Joe Wicks did that 15 minutes. Yeah. So I was watching 15 minutes with Joe and I thought, I could nick that and do like a mindfulness sprint. So I created a mindfulness sprint. And I do these in companies now. And they're a great way of either kind of keeping people's practice going if they've already got a practice, or introducing a newbie to it, because people can come along, they can dial in from anywhere in the world. We do 15 minutes of practice together. It's super easy. And then I'll give them something to do in the rest of their day that doesn't take any time. So it's not about doing something different. It's about doing something differently, which is what people want. So I'll be like, when you're in the shower washing your hair, do this. When you're drinking your coffee, drink this, try this. When you're walking your dog, do this. However it fits your life, you can still sprinkle kind of mindfulness confetti throughout your day. That's what's going to make the difference, right?
Yeah.
The cumulative effect. If I smoke one cigarette now, it doesn't do anything. If I smoke one every hour for the next 6 months or a year, maybe it does something to me. So, but to come back to your question, I think it's being relatable. It's encouraging healthy skepticism and cynicism.
Yeah.
And I think probably the people that can relate to me, maybe arguably the most, are men of a certain age or macho men who just previously wouldn't touch this, who wouldn't sign up to a mainstream mindfulness course, who wouldn't want to look at it on YouTube or anything else.
But you make it.
Yeah, I can show them that it's the most normal, natural thing in the world. That changes across generations. If I'm 50, so 50 and above, people kind of screw their face up. Men, typically. People in their 20s are much more open to it. Yeah.
I mean,
they're like, why wouldn't we do that?
But you think of the social media generation that they've grown up with. Like I'm of the generation where the internet was becoming mainstream just as I was becoming a teenager. So MSN, MySpace, Facebook was just coming in as I was in my sort of late teens. So I remember like all the AOL chat rooms, the Yahoo chat rooms, like we were talking and interacting with people far beyond our own circle on a regular basis at that point. And then obviously that's become more and more the Instagram generation. People have access to so much more information at their fingertips, so many more influences. And it, you know, there's a lot of bad things to be said about social media, and it has been very destructive in some ways, but it's also opened up a world of possibility to so many people, and people are seeing people like you. And, you know, you are one of the LinkedIn creators that I reference regularly to my clients and to people within my membership and say, this is someone who's created content consistently for years, and he does it in a very simple way, but it works because he doesn't overcomplicate it. Your videos are simple, they're direct, they're fairly unedited apart from captions, and you just chat to people on your morning walk with your gorgeous dog, and you create a little post that goes with it, and those come out multiple times a week and people know it's you. And you know, I would imagine that you get a lot of people that are clients that probably don't engage publicly, and they just pop into your DMs and say, you know, oh, Steve, I always watch your videos. I absolutely love it. You've completely changed how I feel about mindfulness. And for you, yes, not everyone's paying you, but your bigger goal is to spread that word and make it accessible for more and more people so that they can heal and they can change and they can make their lives better. And you're doing that on a massive scale. Yeah, thank you. And I can imagine the word of mouth referrals that you get off the back of that are probably a lot as well, right? They're really important. And so it's funny how the whole kind of Walking with Daisy videoing came about. So I do walk her every day, and I often go out into a country park, which is normally where I film it. And I was walking around there, you saying about you having the best ideas in the shower out walking Bronson. I was out one day walking Daisy, and I thought that would make a great LinkedIn post. Whatever the idea was came into my head. And I thought, I'll write it when I get back home. Of course, it's completely gone. It's like trying to remember a dream 10 minutes after you woke up. It's gone forever. So the next time when I was out and I had an idea, I thought I'll make a note of it on my phone. So I started putting it in a draft email. I just saved it. And I thought, do I really want to be walking around the country typing on my phone? Not really. So the next idea I had, I literally just pressed record on my video and thought, I'll do it properly when I get back, and I'll sit and I'll get the camera but when I got home, I just thought, oh, sorry, I'll just post it. It's all right. It's not amazing, but it's all right. Yeah. And people kind of liked it. I think they like it's a little bit rough. It's unrehearsed. But it is unedited. I think when someone, like you said, right, you meet with clients, and when you meet with clients, you want to test that their vibe is there for you. Yeah. Now, when a client reaches out to you and they've already seen you on video, they know the vibe's there for them. Yeah. There's no question. Yeah. Because they've already heard your voice. They've already seen you move. They've seen your facial expressions, your accent. And so often I find that I meet people in person, they go, I feel like I've met you before because I've seen all your videos. That's perfect. And I've already completely catapulted, I've leapfrogged over any hurdle that I had because they already know that they want to work with me. Yes. Now it's just a case of, do I want to work with them? Yes. And you get the power back with the clients. Then it's your choice because they've already made up their minds. They're pretty convinced. It's only talking about like money and time and things like that.
That's the perfect scenario.
Yeah, you've done incredibly well, and I'm really happy to see how far you've come. And you've done masterclasses within the HoLT community, which is obviously now available to people in the Vault as well. And they commented on how relaxed and beneficial it was, and it really changed how they thought about mindfulness and how simple it can be. And I think I love to see your content, and I love to see you thrive. And you're one of the nicest blokes I've met from LinkedIn, and it's always nice to see good people doing well. So I really appreciate you coming on today, and I will look forward to the feedback about your soothing voice, because I think it's going to be very, very popular on the podcast. I
smiled enough. So I watched. I did a podcast before, and I watched my face. In fact, when we worked together, I watched our video back. I thought, my God, I've got such a resting bitch face.
I think you posted a video somewhere on something. You said you were really excited about something, and I commented saying you want to let your face know.
Yes. But if I force a smile, it looks like trap wind. So I'm kind of stuck between rock and a hard place.
It's not that you're not happy to be here, you're just very relaxed. Thank you so much for traveling all the way up here to be here, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Before you go, I just need to tell you about our brilliant podcast sponsor that aligns so well with our own mission at the HoLT. While seasoned podcaster Wendy C was consoling a friend about a toxic workplace experience, she realised that workplace abuse is so widespread, and yet so many people are suffering in silence, often alone. Safe Space from the Workplace is a new podcast for everyone. If you find yourself in a toxic workplace, you're a leader or business owner feeling out of your depth, or you have a friend or family member struggling at work, this podcast is for you. Wendy will be talking about everything workplace related, including survivor stories and speaking to experts specialising in tools to cope with burnout, discrimination, redundancy, grievances, medical issues, women's health, and so much more. The podcast aims to empower employees and educate leaders and business owners, and help people who find themselves in toxic workplaces to realise that they're not alone. Subscribe to the Safe Space from the Workplace podcast on the links below. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.